you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Good afternoon and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr. Thomas Polucki,
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our guest this afternoon is my co-host, the one and only Dr. Thomas Polucki.
Hey.
Well, hello again.
Hello.
Haven't I seen you recently?
Yeah.
Really recently.
Yeah. So today I want to talk about health above and beyond.
Talk about what?
Health above and beyond. So it's an election year, right? So obviously at some point we're going to hear the same old spiel that we're sold every 4 years about who's going to pay for prescription drugs. Like, it's like this thing, right? It's deeply manipulative and misguided. Misguided in the fact that, you know, these politicians don't know any more about healthcare than, I don't know, let's say a software billionaire or every talk show host on TV. But manipulative in the fact that it forces the idea on us that taking drugs every day is a good idea, right? So who's going to pay for this? And that's called a manipulation, right? You're forcing the opinion that, somebody's got to pay for it because we all need to be on drugs all the time, right? That's kind of a ridiculous rhetoric. And they just get the candidates in a fight, and it just reinforces it. The two most powerful men on the planet are going back and forth having this debate about, who's going to pay to keep us on drugs all the time, right?
That's right.
So I think a better question would be, how do we stay healthy so that we stop paying more for our health care than anybody else on the planet, and having some of the least effective results? And I know right now, can you hear that? It's millions of tiny fact checker brains exploding. It's marvelous. But let's get on with the show. Before we start, I want to recap our last conversation. Barb, I call Barb on the phone, right, and she's in this meeting or whatever. So she whispers into the phone, "I am in a meeting. I'll call you back." So Barb, if you would please humor me and just do the show opener exactly in that voice, please. I think we're going to get a whole lot of new listeners on this.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life.
Okay, so it's a little more raspy today than it was yesterday. I'll tell you, it was full-on senior ASMR instead of Senior Hour. So let's get back to the above and beyond. So better quality of life, right? In as few changes as possible, because everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change, right? So that's the rub. So
Very true, very true.
How do we get the most amount of change doing the least amount of work, right? That's where you find the sweet spot. That's where all the magic happens. And it's really about perspective, right? So picture this for a second. You can live 30 days without food, right? if you were stuck on a stranded island, I know everybody is, we got to find food, like those survivor 30 days. You could survive 30 days without
Really?
eating. Yeah. Some of us more than that, but for most of us, you can live about 30 days without, but all of those survivor shows are about, finding bugs and killing lizards and all that kind of crazy stuff in order for them to survive. Meanwhile, they could do the whole series without eating anything at all.
I don't know. I never watched that show.
Yeah, no, good for you. So you got 30 days before your body starts really being in serious jeopardy. Your life is in jeopardy after about 30 days. But and here's the thing. Outside of the emergency room and the commercials for all the drugs out there, pretty much the main topic people will talk about is diet, right? That's what people associate their health with, is what you eat. You are what you eat. Everybody's got to be on the caveman diet, or everybody's got to be on the Mediterranean diet, or everybody this, that, or the other, right? So here's the thing. There's something 10 times more important. Nobody's talking about it. Like, outside of healthcare conferences, and maybe some sports guys talk about this too, the importance of, you can only live, if you were on that island, if you were stuck on that island, before you started worrying about finding your next meal, you really better think about finding some drinkable water. Right? You got 3 days. 3 days to find some clean water to drink. That isn't going to, like give you dysentery or something like that. So 3 days to find potable water, right? 3 days. 10 times more important than what you eat. Who talks about hydration besides me?
Oh, well, a lot of people. My daughter does. She's
Okay.
constantly on me.
Okay.
Drink your water, Mom.
Okay, good. 3 days without sleep. You can live 3 days without sleep. After 3 days, you really start having really serious health issues. So 3 days without water, 3 days without sleep, both of them 10 times more important than the best-selling diet, whatever that is today, right?
Interesting.
But you only have, now here's something that nobody really talks about. You've only got 3 minutes without what? Think about it.
Without breathing.
Yeah, without oxygen, right? It's 43,000 times more important than the food you eat.
Oh, absolutely.
But nobody talks about it. And even at healthcare conferences where you have this $1 million health guru talking to hundreds of alternative healthcare practitioners, and they're going through a breathing exercise and they're doing it all wrong. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. So whenever I have the opportunity, whenever I have my platform, right? Here's a political.
Well, you got it today,
Yeah,
Ken.
I got my platform. So whenever I have my platform, I like to use it not to spout politics, but to talk about healthcare, especially the kind of healthcare that is underserved and underutilized, right? So, and more valuable than any drug commercial out there. So we have what's called accessory muscles, right, that can lift the rib cage up in order to gasp, that last gasp of air when you're running or fighting for your life, right? Mm-hmm. And we have this, but they're not really made to breathe all the time with. They're just in case of emergency. But we have this huge muscle that goes all the way from the bottom of your lungs. It crosses all the way across your body, separating your chest cavity and your abdominal cavity. It's called the diaphragm, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have heard of some singers using diaphragmatic breathing, right? Or you may have heard, if you've taken a yoga class, belly breathing, right? So one is really good and really effective at getting oxygen deep down into the lungs. And the other one is just emergency reserve, right? So I'm going to pop quiz. I'm going to see. Do me a favor, Barb, and take a really deep breath right now. Yeah. All right. So, and if you're not in the studio, if you're not on Facebook, you can't see what happened, but Barb's chest lifted up. As soon as she started breathing in, her whole chest lifted up, right? And more than 9 out of 10 people are going to do this. I'd say probably 99 out of 100 people are going to do that. But that is trying to raise your entire rib cage up with your neck muscles, right? That's what that is. That's the emergency breathing. And it triggers the emergency reaction, the chemical alarm in your brain to flood your body with emergency chemistry. It is the fight or flight mechanism, right? Because you're triggering that kind of breathing. Not great for meditation, but so many people, and Barb, it's not your fault. So many people out there, even health gurus, are out there online showing this one nostril breathing or counting to 4 and then 8 and then 16 or whatever, crazy stuff, and still using emergency breathing technique, which kind of is triggering stress in your body instead of relaxation. And the exact opposite happens if instead of trying to raise your rib cage with neck muscles, you drop that diaphragm down. So belly breathing, diaphragmatic breathing triggers the relaxation, stimulates circulation, first of all, in the abdominal cavity, but also the feedback of the blood flow into the heart, so it relaxes and calms everything down, shuts down all the emergency chemistry in your body, and you go right into healing and relaxation, right? So you got 3 minutes to breathe. It's 43,000 times more important than what you eat. Do you think it might be worth investing a little bit of time breathing properly every day?
I would think so. Absolutely.
All right, so let's work on this exercise because I have my platform and I'm going to use it, right? So stick your thumb in this notch right on top, just under your neck, in between your neck and your breastbone, there's this notch, right? So you stick your thumb in there and then drape your fingers down, right? And then you do the same thing with your belly button. You stick your other thumb in your belly button and drape your fingers down.
Okay, gotta find my belly
right?
button.
And the gurus will have you get in all kinds of funky positions in order to do this. It's ridiculous. It's wherever you are, whenever you are, however you are. This is how you do it. So instead of, when you breathe, heaving your chest up, try to totally relax your chest and drop your chest, but expand your belly to drop that diaphragm down and fill your lungs deeply with air. Try it with me now. Take a deep breath. So much better. And if we do this, we're going to do this for a little bit. Another deep breath. And you're starting to raise your rib cage, so there's going to be a little bit of a mixed response there. Try not to move your rib cage at all, just the belly. Beautiful. And out again. And okay, so that's like black belt level breathing. I'm about to show you master level breathing. It's not even in my book. So instead of just letting the belly expand, I want you to expand 3-dimensionally down and out. So not just your belly is expanding, but out your back too. I want you to feel the small of your back expanding as you take a deep breath, because the diaphragm isn't just in front, it's everywhere. Right under the ribs, it's this case, this coating of muscle that separates your lungs and your abdominal cavity, and you can expand it in front, on the sides, and in back. So if you're expanding your belly and dropping the small of your back out and down, almost like tucking your tailbone, it takes it to a whole new level. And you can practice that sitting, standing, whatever. But it's most important not getting into some kind of meditative pose in lotus position with your thumb and your middle fingers crossed or any stuff like that. It's most important when you instantly need to change stress into healing. How valuable a tool is that?
Extremely.
Like most people deal with it with a martini or a martini.
Not
or
me.
a glass of okay, for you, a glass of Chardonnay.
Chardonnay. Yes,
a glass
there
of
you go.
Chardonnay or pop a pill, right?
Pop a pill? What
Yeah.
kind of pill?
Well, whatever's popular these days. I don't really get into that stuff. But how nice would it be just to breathe for a minute? And this might be the most addictive part of smoking, because when you smoke, you have to pull that toxic chemical deep down into your lungs. So you do tend to breathe more deeply while you're smoking. I'm not so sure that the nicotine is as addictive as they say. It's, more addictive than heroin. I don't know about that, but I do know that the whole ritual is relaxing time for yourself to just relax and breathe. The problem is you're breathing in, cancer. So that's probably not the best strategy.
I haven't smoked in
But
years.
breathing is the key here. And when you do it right, and when you feel the change in your body, it can become totally addictive. And this is one addiction that is really good for you. So we've got what you eat. You are what you eat, right? Okay, I'm not going to spend any more time on that because that gets too much attention as it is.
Yes.
And it doesn't change anything, right? I mean, every year there's a new best-selling diet and everybody's overweight and sick. And so I'm not paying that any credibility. It is important, but there's more important things to focus on, like hydration and proper sleep and breathing. And there's one thing infinitely more important than either of those things. So, you know how they determine whether someone is alive or dead or not?
Do I know how?
Yeah. Clinically, legally, what's going on there?
I would think breathing would be.
Yeah, not really. So that's like, 18th century technology. They would put a mirror in front of someone's mouth, and if it fogged up, they were still alive, and if it didn't fog up, they weren't alive, right?
Well,
but we can have people on a respirator machine, right, and keep them alive indefinitely. So it's not necessarily breathing. And then the next one would be what?
Your pulse.
Your heart, right? So again, yes. A lot of people think, oh, well, is there a pulse? No, there's not. There's not a pulse there. They must be dead, right? But again, one, you can have an artificial heart. You can put somebody on an artificial heart machine. You can actually cut someone's heart out of their body and put a different one from someone else in there, or put a mechanical heart in there, and you could keep that person alive indefinitely. And they might not even know they really have an issue. But there's one thing that there is no transplant for. There is one thing that they measure to determine whether legally, clinically, there is life or not. And that is the electrical and chemical activity in the brain, right? But it's not just important in the brain. It has to be going everywhere in the body, right?
So how do you assess that?
Well, there's things called EEGs, electroencephalogram, like they can see if there's brain activity. You've heard the term brain dead,
Yes.
So that is pretty much it. if there's brain death, very rare instances is there a recovery from that. So that's kind of the legal and technical definition of, when do we pull the plug, right? Mm-hmm. So when we get back from the break, I want to talk about, instead of focusing on what you eat, instead of 10 times more important what you drink and how much sleep you get every night, instead of 43,000 times more important how you're breathing, I want to talk about how to optimize that nerve energy that is literally the definition of life and death. We've been talking about healthcare and how we're not doing such a great job of it in this country, and every 4 years we get promised a whole new lie about how it's all going to change. The reality is it's up to us, the bottom line, and I'll get to that in a second. One of the most important things is how you view your health. And most people just think it's automatic until it goes horribly wrong. That is not a great strategy. There is no justifying the ice cream diet with a shot of whatever to make it all better, right? So what we started to talk about before the break was a hierarchy of what you should be paying attention to. And everybody knows that, I should eat better, right? And so there's diets out there, and there's endless information out there about you should be eating this and not that, and everybody's got their own idea about how that works, okay? So I don't want to spend too much time on that. And then there's something 10 times more important, and that's what, Barb?
Breathing.
No, that's a much more important, just 10 times more important. You got 30 days to find food. You've got 3 days to find what? Water.
Yes.
So hydration. The quality and the amount of water you drink every day is actually 10 times more important than the food that you're eating. And that goes the same for sleeping. You need, I'm not sure, everybody's talking about something like 7 hours, give or take. I do know for sure that you need at least 4 hours optimally between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. to recharge the system. I think anything over that is good until you get to somewhere around 9 hours, and then you start messing things up.
9 hours of sleep?
Yeah, some people do need up to 9 hours of sleep, but most people don't. And somewhere around 7, let's just say 7 hours is the sweet spot, right? But ideally, 4 of those hours are going to be between 10 and 2, like the way you're supposed to drive, right? So, and then there's, like you said, the breathing, which is 43,000 times more important than the food you eat. And we did an exercise in the last segment about how to breathe without lifting your rib cage, right, but dropping your belly down instead, right? The huge difference, a complete difference in what goes on in your body when you breathe down deep into your lungs as opposed to trying to lift your rib cage up. Completely different. So you just lifted your rib cage up.
Yes, but before I was breathing through my stomach.
Yes. So
there's a big difference.
Very big difference in the way the body works. And one of the biggest things, besides relaxation, is it stimulates the immune response. So if you're having a challenge breathing, and so many people this year, because of the rain, because of the pollen, because of everything, are having some respiratory challenges. And the deep belly breathing is probably the best medicine by far for that. Get that oxygen down as deep as possible. You may cough. Breathing that deeply may force you to cough, but that's a good thing. Coughing is not bad. Coughing's getting the bad stuff out and getting the oxygen in, right? So, and then right before the break, we started getting into the on-off switch. Literally, life and death boils down to the nerve activity in your body. If you've got it, you're alive. If you don't, you're dead.
You're dead.
Period. Right. So this is infinitely more important than any other aspect of your health. Now, how do you manage that? Besides seeing someone like me who tunes up the body and takes the pressure off the muscles and the joints and the spine and takes the tension out between the head, neck, and shoulders to make sure that nerve flow from the brain to the body is as smooth as possible. How do you deal with that on your own? Well, there are some things, and I do go into that in my book, Migraine Relief Mastery. But just knowing that those things, eating better, hydrating, getting enough sleep, getting oxygen into your system with some form of exercise, and most importantly, breathing deeply and making sure that the alignment in your body is optimized so that there isn't stress and strain on the nerves that are literally the definition of life and death, is so much more important. But it doesn't receive any attention. It doesn't receive any research, really. It doesn't receive any attention in medical school. There's I don't know, a couple of hours in general, in the curriculum about the diseases of the nerve system. You get the anatomy, the embryology, the physiology of the nerve system, and that is a whole semester. That is one class, a whole semester of that. So, because some of those doctors are going to become neurosurgeons, some of them are going to become neurologists. So you kind of need to know all that stuff, the basic sciences about it. But once you get past that and the diseases, things like stroke, the injury, and Alzheimer's and concussion and things like that, you don't really talk that much about it. It doesn't get that much attention. The most prestigious doctors are the heart doctors. Very rarely do you see the kind of attention and the kind of prestige with someone working on nerves as you do someone working on the heart, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, right? Mm-hmm. So all of the research, education, and insurance is geared towards this emergency medicine or chasing symptoms. That's kind of the way the whole system is geared. But that strategy is kind of like just taking the batteries out of the smoke detector because the noise bothers you, right? If all you do is treat symptoms, you're disconnecting your body's warning system that, the house is burning down. And with your permission, I'd like to prescribe an easier approach to make health more accessible because we need it. We need it desperately in this country, regardless of what the politicians are going to talk about in the next 6 months or whatever leading up to the election. Using that burning house analogy, the first thing you got to do is put out the fire. So what does that mean? Inflammation. Inflammation is the number one common denominator in every killer disease. But you'd think, okay, well, just take an anti-inflammatory. It doesn't really work like that because it's complicated, but the anti-inflammatories only target one or two kinds of inflammation at a time, and it doesn't overall improve health for the most part. And many prescription anti-inflammatories have to carry a black box warning, which means it actually increases the risk of heart attack and stroke, right? So just taking an anti-inflammatory is not the answer when I'm talking about inflammation and health. But the next step, if you put out the fire, let's say we have a technology where we can reduce inflammation in your body, and you know how you do that? Eating the right foods, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, getting some exercise, and taking stress out of the system, right? Sound like
Common
a plan?
sense.
Yeah, pretty common sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next step is to clean up the mess that the fire made and putting out the fire made. if a house burns down, or at
Oh,
least
yes.
a room burns down, and maybe the whole house, there's a lot of cleanup to do in order to make that place habitable again. So in cleanup, again, we're talking about flushing out the system, detoxifying, hydrating again. Hydration again hits the number one spot. And then you move on to rebuilding with, again, the proper nutrition, the proper hydration, the proper structural rehabilitation in order to make that all work properly. And like Smokey the Bear says, only you can prevent the fire. Right? So hoping that there's going to be some kind of magic pill or some kind of shot that allows me to eat whatever I want and have no worries about it. All I have to do is take this shot and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to be skinny and healthy and happy. And, oh, you're laughing. You know what I'm talking about. You know people who are doing that, right? Yeah, I don't have to worry about what I eat. I just take a shot, right? So let's talk about functional medicine, which is a little bit more holistic. And what I mean by that is it's the whole person, not just treating symptoms. And it goes after the root cause of the condition, of the problem. I want to touch base on that real quick if I can. I have a friend who a couple of years ago started feeling like bad and no energy. And this is a high energy person, very active, very influential in his community, great all around guy, hard worker, good family man, all of the above. Started really having a challenge, a health challenge. They checked him out, couldn't find anything. Finally, they found that he was losing blood, losing a lot of blood. Like his blood levels were, he was just emptying out. And they ultimately tracked it down to some kind of bleed in his digestive tract. So they dealt with that, right? But he still felt like crap. And this is now going on for years. He's under excellent medical care, but they can't figure out what's wrong with him. Towards the end of last year, it turns out he's had cancer this whole time, and he had to have, like, organs removed.
And nobody found cancer?
Nobody found it. And the problem I see, and this is not an isolated incident, because I have other people who are going through similar stuff. Chasing symptoms, even with conventional tests, is not the best strategy as far as dealing with overall health. And it can lead to very serious consequences. But in functional medicine, we take the time. We, first of all, get to know our patient, their background, their challenges, like what is really going on. Not the list of symptoms that are going to create some kind of buzzword, knee-jerk reaction. I write a prescription, hand it to you, walk out the door, you fill it at the pharmacy, call me in 6 months. That doesn't work so great for a whole lot of people. We take the time and figure out, okay, what is really going on? How's it affecting your life? What do you want to change? What are you willing to do about it? And can we work a strategy? A lot of the times, it comes down to your diet, your hydration, your sleep, your exercise, and your stress management. So that's why this stuff is relevant. That's why we talk about, you got 30 days to find the right food. You got 3 days to find the right water. You got 3 minutes to breathe. And you instantly, life and death situation is how well your nerve system is working. So that's the focus of attention on how we rehabilitate people instead of just cover up symptoms and hope that, it all goes away on its own. Yeah, we've been talking about healthcare health above and beyond the political rhetoric, right?
Yes.
Who's going to pay for prescription drugs? And the easiest answer, by far, the most economical, the way that it really happens is when we start taking care of ourselves better. And that's with diet, detoxification supported by more hydration, sleeping, at least those 4 critical hours between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., and ideally a couple on either side in addition to that. And breathing deeply down into your lungs instead of trying to heave your chest up to get that emergency breath. And we just touched on the most important aspect, which is having a systemic, measurable way of improving the stress response in your body, turning pain and fear and anxiety and nervous tension into relaxation and a healing response, right? And in my office, obviously I started off as a chiropractor, and I want to let you know, because you're a patient, I'm not a fan of the common chiropractic
You don't twist and turn and
cranking and jerking stuff.
No.
Instead, we use a gentle, precise way of taking out the tension without creating any new issues. And it works.
Yes.
In fact, it may be the most effective way of putting out the fire, the inflammation, restoring flexibility, and allowing people to move better so that they can flow, the circulation can flow, and they can clean up the mess that the fire made, and focusing on helping the body to rebuild better with balance and coordination, and prevent injury and illness in the future above and beyond the emergency medical system and symptom management. So that's kind of my spiel.
Well, exercise comes in there too.
Yeah, we do. That's part of the rehab process, and it's all critical. And you've been with me for a while.
Yes.
So I hope that helps somebody who's maybe not so interested in the lies the politicians are going to tell us over the next 6 months. And if they're struggling with their health, give us a call, 661-753-9340. You've been listening to the Senior Hour at KHTS FM 98.1, AM 1220, hometownstation.com.